Hey y'all, how's it going? I'm Traveler Charlie. I'm a trans Latinx money coach helping you crush debt, boost your credit, and invest for a six-figure retirement without needing to make six figures. And every Wednesday I do these Wealthy Wednesday IG Lives where they're a Q&A session and I answer any and all of your questions about money. And I'm going to put to ask questions in the chat. This is going to be a conversation. Yes. And then we like to put the little money emoji. Yay. And I'm going to repurpose this episode as a podcast episode. If you are not listening or subscribed to the Unicorn Millionaire podcast, get on that. I've just released 142 episodes and it's thebomb.com. So you can get my Unicorn Millionaire podcast wherever you get your podcasts. 42% of my listeners are on Apple. And it's also on Spotify too. So I'm going to hit record on this podcast episode and get into it. Oh, how y'all doing today? Today, I wanted to remind you that you have 1 week left to book your 1 hour money makeover call with me. It's just a call where you basically make up for all the lost time you haven't been on top of your finances. If 2026 was the year you told yourself you get on top of your money, but you haven't yet because it's overwhelming AF, this is the perfect chance to do that. And so in this call, what happens is you just bring me your cash amounts and where they are, including interest rates. And same goes with debt if you have any. And you tell me what kinds of credit cards and debit cards you use so that we can give your credit score a boost and come up with a debt payoff plan as well. And then I'll help you understand what the fuck you're looking at when you log into your 401k. Because you should get on top of that, but whenever you log in, or you just don't because you don't understand what you're looking at. And so that is my job, to help you understand your money instead of being afraid of it and avoid it, because that is what capitalism wants, and especially this regime, which is the topic of today's episode that I wanted to get into. I woke up very inspired to talk about what to do with your money when everything feels scary right now. And it was a big reminder of why it is that I do what I do and why my coaching is normally 6 months long. I don't do these one-off 1 hour money makeovers often at all. It's just a fun thing I'm doing on the side. But yeah, here it goes. So last night I taught a class on how to boost your savings for nonprofit. It was a group of Latinos, and I focused a lot on how to boost your savings. And I did a lot of myth busting and walked people through how to optimize your money now and when your money is now, instead of just waiting to make more money. And so I was talking about how to break up with big banks like Wells Fargo and Bank of America, and all these big banks. I didn't name them by name in the class, but I am on my podcast because none of these banks are sponsoring me. So, yeah. And I walk people through the amount of money you're missing out on just by parking your cash in the wrong place, because you're doing the same things your parents did when you were young. Like when I was growing up, we were living in a small town and the biggest bank was Bank of America. So we went there. And I remember in the 90s opening up things like CDs because your interest rate was higher if you're able to lock up your money. And then the class, that's something that somebody asked me too. They were like, what about CDs? Because I kept talking about how big banks have shitty interest rates, like 0.01, 0.02 versus 4% right now. At the time of this recording, my high yield savings account pays you out 4.1%, which is hundreds of times more than any of these big banks. And one person was like, well, what about CDs? And I was like, CDs right now suck. They were cute in the 90s, but there's no reason to lock up your money if you're getting the same interest rate as you would in a liquid high yield savings account that allows you to withdraw your money with the blink of an eye without having to wait 6 months to lock it up. Like CD interest rates are not worth it at all. And so I was just doing boom, 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 myth busting right and left, talking about how to optimize your money. And no matter how much cash you have, but every day matters, every dollar matters, and where it's parked matters too. I walk people through how if you have 10K sitting in one of those crappy big bank accounts that have like 0.02 interest rates, you'll make only $40 in interest if you leave it in there for like 10 years, which is wild. But if you leave it in the CIT high yield savings account, you'll make like $4,000 in 10 years. And then let's say you have 100K sitting in cash, because I've seen it all. I have clients who have 5K in cash, who have very little in cash, and I have had clients who have like $300,000 sitting in cash in crappy checking accounts. But it's the same habit. I've seen it all. And what matters is that you move money to the right places. And that's what I help you do in my coaching. So if you park your money, if you have 100K in the right high yield savings account for 10 years, you'll make like $45,000 in interest, which is wild. But that just shows you the power of compound interest, but being intentional with your money and really parking it in the right place. And there was this woman in the class who, I do during my classes. I'm a great teacher. I'm very engaging. People ask questions in the chat. I taught for years in my 20s. I did the Peace Corps. I taught high schoolers, middle school. So I'm really good at speaking with the audience and getting interrupted without staying off track, but really answering questions in all the classes that I teach. I love teaching classes. But this woman was like, I get what you're saying, but I'm just really freaked out right now about everything that's going on in the country as a Latina. And I'm just feeling really overwhelmed because of all the things that you're mentioning. And she just sounded so scared, but I really appreciated how real she was and how vulnerable she was. And she was like, where do I start with all this? This is overwhelming because my parents didn't know about interest rates or connecting your credit cards to high yield savings accounts or how to invest for retirement. And I was like, my parents didn't either. My parents did not teach me anything about looking at interest rates and the time value of money and compound interest and how you can actually use credit cards to build wealth and build your credit and make money off credit card companies and bonus intro offers and points instead of just paying them interest, which is what most people think credit cards are. They're the devil and they're scary and they're predatory, but not when you know how to use them strategically. And investing is like, savings and boosting your credit cards is the gateway drug to investing. If you think making 45K in 10 years, parking in a savings account is a lot, wait till you get started investing. Because my high yield savings account pays out 4%, but my investments have grown by 71% in 5 years. So if you think high yield savings accounts are popping, wait till you check out the growth of investing long term. And I get that people who've never been exposed to this feel scared and overwhelmed and like they're behind. And there is a grief process when it comes to realizing that you have been doing it wrong this whole time, that your parents have been doing it wrong this whole time because they just didn't know. Your parents might not even speak English. So how could they know any of these things when they just sacrificed everything to come to this country? And there's nothing stopping immigrants from getting what we want. But our parents just didn't have the resources that we have and the access to knowledge too. So of course you're going to mourn and feel overwhelmed and like, where do I start? Especially with everything going on right now with this government that's trying to terrorize anybody marginalized. They're terrorizing anybody who's not cishet white man. Right? But I see right through this government and I see exactly what they're doing. They want us to be scared. They want us to be too scared to like go to the Mexican grocery store or support local businesses because of ICE. Like that fear is real. But being scared is exactly what this regime wants. They want us to stay scared so that we don't build wealth. They want us to stay terrified so that we don't ask more for ourselves and just stay small and hidden, because that's what this Republican right-wing ideology is all about. It's about keeping marginalized people down, and it's all about creating divisions between people. I saw my favorite trans comedian, Alok, in Random Bend, Oregon, and it was a Q&A session, and they talked about how the government really was trying to split us up and divide us when COVID hit and people had time to themselves to really think about systemic oppression. And that's when the Black Lives Matter movement started, and people of all like races and classes were getting together to protest racism. And then the government was like, oh no, we don't want people to fight the man and organize. Especially in America, it takes a lot for Americans to be out in the streets. Like, you got to really piss us off, because having a privatized healthcare system was not enough to piss people off. But it really takes things getting really bad for Americans to protest. And so that's when the government decided to start targeting trans people and vilifying them to create fear and sow fear. And that fear is a lot easier to sow within rural communities. As somebody who grew up in rural Eastern Washington State, I didn't have any like gay friends who were out of the closet. I didn't come out until I left, until I went to study in Boston, until I was like 18. And so this government wants us to stay scared. It wants us to fear each other and divide each other so that they keep building wealth on their own terms and lining their own pockets. Like when we, there's something about Trump liking to start shit in April or springtime. Last year he did that. He was like, oh, we're going to tariff the world, and the stock market crashed. And then he was like, now's a great time to buy. For everybody who knew what was going on, that meant buy stocks. And then he's like, we're not going to do tariffs. And then the stock market shot up. Same thing happened recently when we invaded Iran. The stock market shut down. It crashed. And then we were like, oh, we're not going to really invade Iran, ceasefire talks. And now the stock market, I just checked, and just a few weeks after we do this mess, the stock market's coming back to all-time highs. So it's systemic, it's engineered. And having that understanding gives me a lot of clarity and confidence. Speaking for myself, I was undocumented. I had a constant fear that I was doing the wrong thing, or that I would get deported, or that I didn't belong here. I had a very dysfunctional family situation. I never felt like I belonged. It was just like constant fear of doing the wrong thing. And that's what the government wants you to think, that you're doing the wrong thing, or that you can't earn more for yourself. And when I came out to my family, it was like, it was kind of okay. But when I came out as trans, that was not okay. And that is very common for most families. Like, you can be gay, but you can't be trans. So when I decided to get top surgery way back in 2017, that's when my family estrangement started. I took myself to the hospital in an Uber, and my friend took an Uber and took me back from the hospital. I didn't have any support from my family at all when I got my top surgery, which is an incredibly daunting thing to do on your own, even with support. But my stepdad tried calling me the night before I got my top surgery, trying to tell me not to do this to myself. So I get it. I get that things can feel horrible and overwhelming when you're not supported because of your identity, but that's not a reason not to do it, because it only benefits capitalism and the patriarchy and all these systems that want to keep us down. So I've been estranged from my family for years. And that's why I'm so passionate about building wealth, because family estrangement is something huge that affects people. That people ask me like how being queer affects family, like finances, or affects finances. And I think they want me to talk about like IVF costs and all that, and adopting and stuff. And I'm always like, no, it's family estrangement, because having family support, both emotional and financial, having that pulled out from under you hurts you a lot in the long term. I don't think people realize how much privilege they have when you're able to move back home with your parents to save money. I saw it when COVID hit, when like rich white men were moving back home with their parents to save money. And I've seen it in the entrepreneurship community. I've had business coaches be like, just move home to save money. That's what X person did. And I'm like, you don't get it. That's not an option for me to save money. So that's a reason why I've had to move past the fear of this government wanting to crush my soul and hating me and everything that I am, and taking charge of my money. Every time there's a threat to trans rights, every time there's like ICE coming out, I'm always like, thank God I have money, because money is power. Every time I see a trans person start a GoFundMe because they were like evicted, or they need to raise funds for top surgery because like their family can't or won't support them in this decision. I'm like, yeah, money is something that everybody wants, but I think especially in the marginalized community, we are afraid of seeming like we're greedy capitalists for needing money. And I had a friend whose brother was taken by ICE. And what did she do? She started a GoFundMe because it's expensive to hire lawyers. It's expensive to do anything. But money does buy happiness. Money does buy security. It does buy peace of mind. But not only the money, knowing how to optimize and manage your money. Like, I've been in a slow season myself as a full-time business owner who's been doing this for 5 years. I spent a lot of money and time on doing a rebrand to make my brand more in line with who I am. If you look at my Instagram, it's popping. I love my rebrand, but that's taken a lot of time away from me marketing my business and creating sales and stepping into that. So I've shifted back into marketing, because when you're a business owner, money doesn't fall from the sky. And I think that's what stops a lot of business owners is they all want to start businesses, but you also have to market yourself. You have to put yourself out there. And especially if you've been at the 9 to 5 and you've been able to hide behind your 9 to 5, your friends and family aren't seeing you at work. But once you start a business, all of a sudden, everybody, it feels like a fishbowl. Everybody's watching what you're doing. And that can create insecurities, especially if your quote unquote friends are assholes to you. And I've lost lots of friends who were assholes to me as a business owner. But I'm so proud of myself for not stopping what I'm doing because of the fear of being perceived, because I'm so bought into my mission. And last night when this woman talked about how she felt so scared about everything going on right now and felt overwhelmed and was like, how do I start with my money? It was a reminder for me of, this is exactly why I do what I do. This is exactly why my coaching is 6 months long, because it is overwhelming doing this alone. It is overwhelming researching on your own. Okay, which high yield savings account should I move my money to? Will my money be okay? And that's a big fear, especially with Latinos. We're all scared that our money's going to vanish, because that has happened in our Latin American governments in the past, when there's been a lot more political turmoil because the US and the CIA has fucked those countries up. It's not random. It's like so much is the US's fault. But the one thing about the US is they will always protect their corporate interests. This system is not going to crumble. It has been alive and well, and it was built by landowning, slave-owning white men. And that really hasn't changed at the end of the day. The system was designed to protect itself. And that's why things like the stock market exist. And these systems are engineered to benefit people who already understand them. If they weren't, the stock market wouldn't crash. But the stock market was designed to be able to crash and have rich people benefit when it does, if you know what you're doing. You don't even have to be rich. Like myself, when the stock market crashed, I was only making 45K. I was not rich, but I was excited. I was like, ooh, we're going to ball out, because I know now when the stock market crashes, you buy or you just hold. You don't even have to do anything. I like to say that I buy, but I really just hold when the stock market crashes, because I don't really have a lot of cash on the side, because I invest aggressively. Like on my net worth, as of today, the stock market's on its way back up. My net worth is about $218,000, and only 10K of that is in cash. I invest aggressively to make up for all the lost time that I didn't know. I should have had an investment account open for me when I was born, but my parents didn't know, and your parents didn't know either. But that's the time value of money. And so I invest aggressively to make up for all the lost time I didn't know I should have been doing this, and to make up for all the lost time I have not had a stable 6-figure job. So investing is all about making up for lost time and not beating yourself up about it. But I get it. It happens when you beat yourself up. So I wanted to name that grieving process of realizing that it's normal to feel sad, especially in my workshops and all the coaching I do and all the content I make. I feel like I reveal to people, and I stir a lot of emotions in them. I make them feel cray-cray. I make them feel something, which is a testament to the power of what I do. I make people feel things about money and question systems, because chances are when you get together with your friends, especially if you're not a man, y'all don't talk about money because y'all are ashamed to talk about it. Or if you do, you just talk about how broke you are and think it's a joke. And I've seen it in my friend circles, but one thing I'm not going to do is joke about how broke I am. No matter how much money I have, I've never talked about myself in that way. I've never talked about myself as a broke person. You're not broke. You just don't know how to optimize your money. And so get yourself friends or people like me who normalize talking about money in intentional ways. In the few times that I do hang out with men, boom, we immediately start talking about investing because they know I'm a money coach and crypto, and they talk about their mistakes, the thousands of dollars they've lost, and growing their money. But it's just so normal for cis men to talk about money. And there's a reason for that. That is why men have more money, because it's normal for them to encourage each other or talk about growing money. It's not as stigmatized. When it's marginalized people, it's women, it's non-binary folks, it's trans people, we are the ones who need these conversations the most. And so that's why it's so important to destigmatize these things. And that's why I do what I do. That's why I do what I do for 6 months long, because I walk you through all of the wounds and the shame you feel by uncovering all of these things that you've been avoiding for decades because you knew deep down that it was going to be hard. But that's why I do what I do. I'm a very encouraging, empathetic person who knows it's not just about them making the money moves. If it were, you would have Googled all of these things years ago and done it all yourself, but you haven't, because it's scary, because you have wounds, because you don't know what the possibilities are like. And so that's why I'm very transparent about showing you how I organize all my money as somebody who has never taught any of these things by my parents. And I've had to unlearn so many things about money and what actually works and how to actually grow your money passively in order to not become a victim to this administration or next administrations. This is a fascist regime. We'll probably go Democratic, but then fascist regimes will keep coming, y'all. I think a lot of people are like, oh, I just want to not pay taxes because of this regime. But it's like, okay, but this isn't going to be the last time. History repeats itself. We go through cycles of not so cuckoo administrations to cuckoo ones over and over. So yeah, and if you have a hard time trusting, the trust is big, especially for Latinx immigrants, but that is costing you money and it's delaying your retirement. If you don't trust institutions like high yield savings accounts, I want you to ask yourself why. Why do you trust Wells Fargo, which was literally in trouble for the ghost account scandal, for creating millions of fake ghost accounts for people, and they just got a slap on the wrist? That's what really gets me, is that people seem to trust big banks just because they see them in person, where they are the ones that fuck you over 10 times more than these online high yield savings accounts. Having physical branches does nothing for you. It doesn't make you more safe at all. Like being able to go to a physical branch, that's like being like, oh, I trust Starbucks because I can go to Starbucks in person. Like, no, being in person does not do anything for your money. That just tricks you into thinking you're being safe when you're really delaying your retirement and you're working years longer than you need to, when you could just be chilling on the beach, having more bougie brunches, getting more massages, and relaxing and doing all the things that your ancestors wanted you to be doing by now. So yeah, there's nothing good about physical locations. And I've been using online banks for years, and there's nothing at all that makes me feel like I would need a physical location in the first place. If I got a problem, I call them up and get it resolved in my pajamas, in my bed. I do not need to go to any of these physical branches. So yeah, what's important is to convince yourself first. You have to convince yourself first to be on board instead of trying to convince everyone else. And I get a lot of people who say, oh, can I get a coaching call for my parents? Or I've literally, one of my clients, Gloria, I remember treating her to a free session when I was first starting out my coaching, and she wouldn't take it. She was like, oh, but I want to pass this off to somebody else. I'm like, you need the help though. You need the help, accept the help. Because a lot of us have problems with receiving, because again, it ties back into this fear of feeling like a greedy capitalist pig. But you need the help. If you're asking for me to help your parents, that means that you can't help them on your own, and you need the help for your own personal finances, hands down. If you did know how to do these things, then you wouldn't need me to schedule a call with your parents. And I'm like, your parents need to be on board. You can't convince somebody to get help. You need to be on board to get help for yourself. But that's why I like working directly with my clients. I had one client, like Nora. She was my youngest client. I work with clients from their 20s to their 60s. And my client Nora came to me because she felt super scattered with her money. She was the eldest daughter, Latina, Mexican parents, and she felt super scattered with her money, but I helped her collapse 2 years of money moves that would have taken herself to do into 6 months of coaching. And then once she got on board and she started understanding for herself how to empower herself, that's when it clicked for her. And that's when she was able to open up retirement accounts for her younger sisters and for her mom. I've had lots of Latina clients, whether you're the eldest or not, open retirement accounts for their parents. And so, yeah, and it's natural if your parents have more money, but it's rotting more. Like if they have 20, 50, 100K rotting in a checking account, they really don't have more money. You will have more money because you know where to put it in the right place. But once they see you making moves poco a poco, because Latinos are hella chismosos, they're going to be more curious about things poco a poco, but you can't put everything all at them. I've had clients whose parents were not on board and were like, no, I don't want to do that. Especially if you have boomer parents or Gen X parents, they might be too stubborn and too stuck in their own ways. And there's nothing you can do about that. You cannot change people. Same goes for spouses or partners. You can't change your partner. You can't force them into being on board for wanting to retire early. Because some people, for real, they prefer staying stuck. They prefer staying in that victim mentality. They prefer the suffering. They prefer having friends who like to just complain about how expensive everything's getting and how inflation is horrible because it's comfortable and it's familiar for them to stay stuck. But you are losing money by staying stuck. Inaction is costing you. And if your parents can't get on board, then at least you need to. And I don't think I need to convince you anymore. So yeah, my work is all about dismantling your blocks and fears that are costing you both financially and emotionally. It is stressful to stay stuck. But some people prefer to have like chronic disease, health issues, and just be pissed off the rest of their lives than to feel the discomfort and freedom that comes with taking ownership of your life and focusing on what you can control and receiving blessings from the universe in the form of affirmation and money. It takes a lot of work to do that because it's so uncomfortable and you're breaking cycles. And a lot of what my clients do, they're the first in their families to do any of these things, which of course it's going to be scary to be the first in your family to do these things. But all of us have been the first in the family to do things like go to therapy. I was the first in my family to go to college and not drop out on a generous financial aid package. I was the first in my family to get my master's degree. I was the first in my family to travel the world, and I've been to 39 countries by 35 without ever having made more than $45,000. And that was just in 1 year. Usually I make less than that too. We're already the first in our families to do so many things. And money is the most important thing. It's what everybody thinks about and stresses about, and they want it no matter what they say. They do. People want more money. If you're walking down the street and you see $100, what are you going to do? You're going to pick it up. If you're a nice person, you might call the police. I would just see that as a blessing from the universe. Like I found a wallet in Playa del Carmen with like 1,000 pesos and I went and got a massage with it. I was like, thank you. And then I cut up the credit cards and I tried like finding the person, but I couldn't. So I kept the money after that, but I cut up the credit cards because I'm a good person. I was like, I don't want this person to be victim to fraud. So I did what I had to do, but then I received and accepted from the universe. Thank you, universe, for that. And going back to the trust thing, this was something I mentioned in the class too, because one objection that people have for opening high yield savings accounts is that they're like, but what about my credit union? Same thing. It all comes down to interest rates. And your credit union might be nice, but being nice doesn't collapse your timeline to retirement. I would hope they would be nice to you, but that's not enough to grow your money. If your credit union is paying out a 0.04 interest rate, which sounds better than Bank of America's, which it is, that's still much worse than a 4.1% interest rate from a high yield savings account. I have never told any of my clients to stay at their shitty credit union because their interest rates are still crap. You can still have a cute like relationship with them in terms of, okay, I'm going to move my money to a high yield savings account, might hit you up for a personal loan because their personal loan interest rates are better than a bank's. But that doesn't mean you have to keep your money there. Banks are businesses. They're not nonprofit. Banks don't exist to be nice to you, y'all. Like banks are here to make money off of the money that you are parking with them. So you might as well get your cut back. They're not nonprofits. It is a business model that's alive and thriving. You think getting paid 4.1% a lot is a lot? No, they are lending out that money for 10 times that probably and profiting off of that. It's not like a cute thing they just feel like doing. And so that's something that motivates me to get what I can from all of these systems. Like, oh, if this corporation is profiting, but how can I get more money back? What's in it for me? And you have to start having that mentality of what's in it for me, because this is passive income. I'm all about getting paid the most to do the least. That is the vibe, and that is what millionaires do. They want their money to grow itself in their sleep. And I think that was a big mindset shift after growing up an immigrant and in scarcity mindset in a constant state of stress, that I had to start unlearning when I became a stockbroker. I remember learning about how my colleagues were buying stock and day trading on the side and all of these intricate things that they would do by just clicking buttons and timing things and talking to each other about what stocks to buy. That honestly was not interesting to me. And I was like, why don't y'all just get another job? Why are you doing this? Because I was still stuck in that mentality of, oh, you need to get a job where you sit at a desk for 8 hours a day and stress out and exchange your time for money. And then I quickly learned that it doesn't have to be that way. Or you can do that for a short amount of time. You can, which is what I did. That's the mentality that I started shifting from, oh, I don't need to work my ass off. What matters is where I put my money and know exactly where every dollar's sitting in cash and make sure I understand exactly where my money is growing. And if you're investing in a 401k but don't understand what it's investing in, then you are losing money because your money is sitting in funds that are too expensive or too cash heavy. No matter if somebody's come to me not knowing how to invest, I've had people who quote unquote know what they're doing, and we still get them out of those funds that have way too much in cash that's rotting there, and switch them into funds that charge low fees, because you are paying fees for these funds, which you don't know about, which is another reason why my coaching is 6 months. Like, I show you all these things that you don't even know you're paying for. And so you might as well, if you are paying fees, might as well pay less in fees for way more growth. So I think working in finance and working around people who weren't necessarily wealthy, like we were only making 45K as starting stockbrokers, but we had that millionaire mindset of, oh, let's make our money grow itself so that we can chill instead. Because working your butt off for 40, 50 years is probably what our parents were bought into. But they also they also had a better economy where wages kept pace with inflation, where there wasn't AI, where the job market wasn't so cutthroat and competitive. And back when minimum wage actually paid people enough to be able to buy houses. But we don't have that luxury anymore, which is why it's more important than ever for us to not be afraid of everything going on right now and optimize every dollar we have right now exactly where it's parked. So I'm so proud of myself for doing all these things and for showing other people relentlessly how to do these things, because it's a public health crisis. The economy is horrible right now. It's great for the millionaires, but for you and me, like with AI and everything, people keep waiting for things to get better, but they're not. AI has disrupted the economy for good. It's not like this recession isn't like COVID, when we had a global pandemic and people were forced to shut down and were laid off because you couldn't go out to eat anymore. But this economy is looking a lot more different. But the good thing about that is that now you know that what it takes is to optimize the money you have now instead of waiting, because waiting doesn't do you any good at all. So I keep my money at CIT Bank now. I used to have Ally. Ally's cute if you have a little bit of cash like I did. But then I decided to open the CIT Platinum Savings because it has a $5,000 minimum for that pop in interest rate. If you dip below a 5K, it's still going to be a better interest rate than Bank of America, but it dips drastically. And so that's why, in case it ever dips below 5K, I have the Savings Connect. So I park all my cash at CIT. I still have my old Ally accounts open with like a penny or two in them, just as a backup, just in case. But the interest rate at CIT is better, and they're free. I'm not charged any penalties for not having enough like these big banks do. And I remember even Ally, they were cute. There's like a withdrawal limit from savings accounts where you can withdraw, I think now it's 10 times a month from one high yield savings account, which I usually almost hit that because I pay my credit cards directly from my high yield savings, and I pay myself to my high yield savings. I don't do the checking account rodeo where pay myself to a checking account, then move a random amount to savings because I think it's what I should be doing because it makes me feel like an adult. No, that's just stressing you out and wasting your time when you should be investing and growing your money instead. And so I have another high yield savings account at CIT just in case I ever exceed that 10 times a month limit, which so far I haven't. So you can always have a backup. That 10 times a month limit scares people, but you can always just open up another free account. All of this is free. It is free to grow your money more once you work with me and we get you going in the right places. So yeah, it's all about not wasting any time and just seeing interest rates. I think people are too fixated on what's the best one. And it's so simple for me. It's just like, this is the best interest rate. And this is what I've told people for years and years, but the difference is working with me. I've seen people over and over ask me like, what should I do for years? But they still don't do it because they're scared, because they're self-critical and they're still terrified. But once you work with me, I make sure you do these things and we do them in real time so that you actually have the confidence to get it done. And we spell out how much money you're saving and generating now that you finally make this change. That is the shift that I constantly see with people who decide to stop trying to DIY it and waste time for years versus actually getting coaching and accountability. I have another client, Melissa, who told me, I'm so happy your coaching is 6 months because it was so good to have the accountability of having somebody follow up with me and make sure I got these things done. Because even when you're excited to make money moves, of course, it's still going to be emotional. She was the first one in her family who started having these intentional conversations. So of course it's scary and emotional, but she came to me just like all y'all do, scattered, worried if her money was doing the right thing. She was worried that her 401k wasn't growing like it should. And she was right. We logged in and we switched out of all of her funds because they weren't growing correctly at all. So we switched out of those funds and into the good funds. But that's why my coaching is 6 months. It takes time for these things. Do I see a AI bubble crash on the horizon? I'm not really worried about the crashes because what goes up must come down. I really don't think AI is going to leave if that's what you're wondering. I think AI is here to stay. I'm just worried about how it's making people disconnected from themselves and from each other. And I'm worried about how people are seeing that this as something that's not going to be here to stay. And so they're just waiting to ride out the wave and waiting for a crash to happen so that jobs go back to normal. But companies rely on AI, so they hire robots to do things they used to hire humans to do. So AI is here to stay, in my opinion. So that's why it's really important to optimize your money, no matter how much cash you have or debt or credit or investments, to not waste any more time, because you're missing out on anywhere from 5 to 100K in gains you could be making just by making these moves that I've made. As somebody who's never made more than 45K, I'm so happy I didn't wait to make more money, and that I already have people making as much as I make 45K, I've had people making 300K. I work with people of all ages, all income levels, because I help them build the habits that they aren't able to do on their own, DIYing it, because waiting does not help you with your money, and waiting to feel like less anxious. How has that worked out for you? The anxiety is not just going to magically go away by itself. So if you've been meaning to work with me or finally get a hold of your finances because you know that DIYing it is not it, or even if you have DIYed it, but you still don't understand your 401k investments because you 100% should, then I invite you to book a money makeover call with me. Yeah, if you have an old rollover you've been meaning to roll over for years, that is tens of thousands of dollars in gains that we can unlock now. Like, I helped a client who thought she only had a few hundred in old 401ks realized that a company she quit 15 years ago did a merger, and we logged into her 401k, and this was month 4 into month 6 of coaching. Another reason why my 6-month coaching is so detailed, and it takes a while. It takes a while for you to uncover these old 401ks and everything, but I walk you through every step of the way. And this client had $141,000 in cash in that old 401k, which she won the lottery with that. Pero imagínate if she had been investing it, if she had worked with me 15 years ago when she'd left that job, she would easily already be a multimillionaire. So I help you make up for all the last time you didn't know how to do these things that your parents didn't teach you because they didn't know, and stop wasting time and start making your money work for you. Because in this economy, with things as scary as they are, it's empowering to take charge of your money, because this is not what Trump wants you to think or do, especially as a marginalized person. They do not want trans people like me, Latinx people like me, formerly undocumented people like me, teaching people about how simple it is to save for early retirement, so you don't have to work another day that you don't want to work, and be work optional and financially free, and have the ability to travel the world without needing a 6-figure salary, and take 3 weeks off of your business like I do. I'm in my slow season because I've earned it and I deserve it, and I'm building wealth for what? So that I can take time off and not work. Yes, okay, I love what I do. I love my work. It is extremely fulfilling to show up and talk my ass off about dinero, because you need to hear it. If I don't do it, who will? Right? So yeah, I invite you to work with me, whether it's 6-month coaching, or if you're listening to this before April 22nd, that's the last day that you can book your 1-hour, one-off money makeover call with me, where I audit your cash, credit, debt, and investments in an hour, so you know what moves to make in the future. And if you book your 6-month coaching in April, like right after the makeover, then you can actually get that makeover for free by using the $297 fee for the makeover as a credit toward my 6-month coaching. This has worked well for a lot of people. I get a lot of people who know that they're like, yeah, I need to work with Charlie. They do the makeover and then they sign on into 6-month coaching, so we can actually implement everything together, because the makeover reveals a lot of things that you can and should do on your own, but you won't do it all because it's overwhelming, because you don't know the investing jargon and don't know all those high level things. Yeah, you could open a high yield savings account, but the credit, the debit cards, the passive income, investing in your 401k, rollovers, you haven't done that yet because it's overwhelming. And so that's why my money makeovers are the gateway drug into my 6-month coaching program, which is $6K for 6 months. You get bi-weekly calls, access to my exclusive money coaching curriculum on all these topics that I've been talking to y'all about. And you get daily WhatsApp messaging support with me, where you can ask me any and all questions and give me updates in between calls too. So I hold your hand through every step of the way. Money coaching is tailored to you. It's not a group class. It's not a group program where you meet every week and you have to wait to get one question answered and have to rush through because you got 20 other people sitting trying to ask this question. It's tailored to you, and we take time to make sure that you build wealth so you can help empower yourself and empower your loved ones, whether it's biological family you're still in touch with or you're estranged from family, like myself, and are here to help chosen family and want people who are not your biological relatives to inherit your money, or you want your biological relatives to inherit your money and you want to be the rich, gay, or straight auntie or uncle of your dreams. That is what I'm here to help you with. All right, y'all. And if you're not on my email list, get on my Crush Debt Retire Early emails. And please leave me a 5-star review on my Unicorn Millionaire podcast and subscribe so you can get the next best episode. All right, y'all. Have an amazing day. Bye.